All right, we are live. Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending this town hall webinar for garden centers. My name is Tony DiGiovanni. I'm the Executive Director of Landscape Ontario. The COVID crisis has everyone unsettled, anxious, and fearful. As a garden center owner, you are facing challenges that are unprecedented in your lifetime. It is especially difficult for you because you have 12 weeks in spring to generate 80% of your revenue. In times like these, it is especially important to know you are not alone. It is also important to take action, share information, generate collective ideas, and support each other. There really is strength in community. The purpose of this garden center town hall is to do just that. A number of garden center owners have volunteered to answer questions and to share strategies. When you talk through serious issues, they tend to become smaller and more manageable. The garden center speakers are Michael Van Dongen from Dongen Nurseries. Michael's also the chair of our garden center group. Art Vanden from Sheridan Nurseries. Warren Patterson from Barrie's Garden Center. Tanya Olsen from Royal City Nurseries. And Rob and Terry Vanderkruk from Connon Nurseries. Each of the speakers will introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their business. After the introductions, we'll start with the questions. All of you in the webinar audience will have the opportunity to ask questions or share ideas just in your chat box, just type away. And so without further introduction, let's get started. So we'll start with Warren.
Well, welcome everybody, and I'm glad you could join us today. I'll give you a little bit of perspective on this, and Tony was right. This is unprecedented. We have 12 weeks typically in our year to make the money. And what happened was in our garden center is we close on December the 24th, and we typically stay closed to the first week of March. And this year was just like every other. We brought the staff back, we started setting up, and we opened. And then all of a sudden the coronavirus came to the forefront. And at that time, things were moving very quickly for us, and I was watching what others were doing. And I said to my staff, I don't want to be the first to close, but I also don't want to be the last to close. And then when I started seeing other businesses closing, we actually made a very difficult decision to say, we're going to close on March the 13th. And my decision was actually at that time based on the fact that the risk versus reward was out of balance. And the way I looked at it was I could not afford to have my staff being sick in that 12-week period that we typically make our money. So right now what we're doing is we're getting all prepared for that 12-week window because my belief is this year you want to get into the market, you want to operate very nimbly because things are not going to be the same. And even within this 12-week period, even if they start to open up some of the retail services, they will not be opened up the way we normally enjoy them to be. So my perspective is we want to get into the 12 weeks, make our money as quickly as we can, and but be very focused on profitability at least, because you want to end this year at least at a break even, so you're not into a greater hole than where you are right now. So that's my perspective. It is unprecedented, and the good news is, I guess, is that not only is all the garden centers are in this together, but every industry is affected here, and I think together we're going to figure this out. We're all going to come out the other side very strong.
Thanks, Warren. Just for the presenters, there is a mute button on the top. It's a second blue circle. If you're not speaking, mute it, because there's a whole bunch of background noise that the attendees are telling us about. So let's see if we can make this a little bit clearer. Anyway, next, Art Enden. Can you just share a few words with us?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Hopefully that's clear. So I'm VP of Garden Center Operations for Sheridan Nurseries. So I'm responsible for the 8 garden centers that we have, primarily in the GTA, but we also have one in Kitchener. So we're pretty surrounded in South Central Ontario around the city of Toronto. Our garden centers are really year-round retail garden centers, but we also do wholesale business to landscapers out of the locations. So like Warren, although not like Warren, we were open through the winter at 7 of our 8 stores, but on March the 17th, when everything was coming down fast and furious that week, we decided to close down our stores to the public, just shut them down altogether. We didn't really have any e-commerce business up and running at that time. So it was across the board, all channels. And since then, on April the 1st, we reopened our wholesale offerings out of the 8 stores to the landscapers and business to business and things like that. And there's been a certainly a positive uptick towards that, which has been welcome. It's been nice to see. And our plans are that our retail operations are going to open to curbside pickup / delivery this week. We haven't 100% confirmed that yet, but it's certainly looking like we're leaning that way. And besides that, Sheridan Nurseries also, as many of you know, has a large growing operation that's facing the challenges that all of the growers are that's out there. So we're operating there, but facing a lot of challenges right now with labor shortages and dependency on offshore workers, which has been tough. So anyways, I'm going to try to focus just on the retail and the garden center outlets. So I'll hand it over back to you, Tony.
Thanks, Art. Let's go to Rob and Terry Vanderkruk. Share some of your, let us know who you are. Most people do know, but maybe some don't. And maybe share a few words about your strategies and what you're dealing with.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm Rob Vanderkruk, and this is Terry Vanderkruk with Connon Nurseries. And we, as most people know, I think we are primarily plant material producers and suppliers to landscape contractors, as well as we do have 3 retail outlets. We had a full staff essentially already back in, or at least on the production side, so things are already ramping up with full staff basically back at the beginning of March. And being primarily plant material, as we can appreciate, there's a requirement for maintenance and just for getting that production in place already at that stage. So our first reaction as a company to what was happening around the virus was to make sure that we, first of all, put protocol in place and safety procedures in place for the staff that are here. And going through that process, I guess maybe we did develop a little bit of confidence in that, in the processes that we put in place. We do feel that it was a bit of a blessing. We had to at least go through that process maybe a little bit earlier in terms of just having a lot of staff here already that had to be dealt with. And so we put a protocol in place, we put safety procedures in place that and developed some strategy, I guess maybe already 3 weeks ago around this. And where we're at is being, again, primarily plant material or crop focused. I guess our opinion is this, and that is that it's crop. It's a seasonal crop. It needs to turn. It needs to move through, and it needs to be maintained. And I believe that's true for the whole industry. It's a crop that, let's face it, doesn't have any more than perhaps maybe a few months shelf life, or maybe in the woody ornamentals, maybe a half a season's shelf life. So I don't see it too much different than perhaps maybe we would even look at, although more essential, potentially even the way that we would look at food. From my own standpoint, I would say, as an industry, if this goes on for a long period of time, into a year or two, how much damage are we doing by getting to a point where the majority of the industry is having a tough time surviving, and thereby, let's face it, folks, we are the people that produce and supply trees for fresh air. And If we want to be breathing 40, 50 years from now, then we might want to consider how essential that is, right? And so I guess that's been our own personal view. Thereby, by going through the process of actually putting through protocol, we said, can we extend this safely to our customers on the public side as well? And so we did get to a point where last week, Friday, we reopened to public. You know, we think we've done a very good job on setting up protocol that, in terms of signage, in terms of procedures, in terms of staff training, we think we've done a great job in terms of getting that in place. Traffic, albeit, you know, early April, even with this weather, has been relatively slow. And I think rightly so. I think we're being very cautious. And yet it's giving us an opportunity to become good at this. I guess our long-term view is that this isn't going away anytime soon. So right off the get-go, we said, one way or the other, we need to get really good at this as an industry. We developed our own protocol called Proceed Safely. One way or the other, it wasn't real clear to the industry whether we were allowed or not allowed. If you're like me, there's maybe even some feelings of, boy, how essential are we? You know, there's maybe feelings of guilt, you know, and yet when I think about the families that we feed, when I think about the industry surviving, then I would say that guilt goes away relatively quickly.
Yeah, I'll add to that. We're definitely leaning on the items 24 and 25 on that essential list. And if we think about, you know, keeping what this is really about, and that is to be socially responsible and to stop the spread, you know, it is conflicting, as Rob said. But if we look at the alternative to everyone being closed, and I saw something go through this morning that allows, you know, those that are doing food and pharmaceutical as their primary, that those will be the people that are allowed to sell plants. I don't know, like if you think about the crowds that are going to be going through there, you know, to get plants while we're all closed, is that socially responsible? Is that going to stop the spread? So, you know, there's a lot of things that we are, you know, kicking back and forth, and I guess that's why we decided for our company, let's open up, let's proceed safely, because yeah, we're in this for the long term. We can't be knee-jerking a week here and a week there. I personally see this being a whole year.
Yes. Terry and Rob, is there any way that you guys can speak directly into a microphone? Because we're getting a lot of the attendees saying they can't hear you. So I wonder if you can do that just to improve it for later. And we're going to move on now to Michael Van Dongen. Michael, who are you and what's your take on this?
Hi guys. Yeah, just let me know if it's like an application issue that's sounding terrible, or if it's just it could be me as well. We've had some issues with our internet. I think the internet world has been inundated with a volume of data traffic with everything. But my name is Michael Van Dongen, one of the owners of Vanden Nurseries. We are a garden center, but as well as a grower and a landscaping company. Sound fine, look terrible. Yeah, thanks. I definitely find that this has been a challenge. I think about a decade ago, when it was 2008 and the recession was upon us, I think it was Maury Nurseries or something that said, don't worry about the economics of the world, just focus on having a couple good weekends with nice weather. And well, I think we can update the list now, because this is definitely very unprecedented, which I think is a very big word that's been thrown around a lot recently. Our business has been frantically retooling ourselves so that we can take on as much as we can with being safe as possible. Just like Warren said, I find that a couple precautious steps right now are needed, including keeping closed. Our business is closed in the wintertime, so we haven't called anyone back officially to open our doors to the public, although we are here behind the scenes. But yeah, we're kind of looking at the risk reward towards what happens in the later spring, late May, April and May, and realizing that we cannot have our workers kind of in a situation where there's a lockdown of some sort. So yeah, and also very optimistic. I think what's really nice is seeing that the Ontario government has really put some leverage behind our industry and some value to it. The first round of essential, non-essential kind of businesses were very vague on our industry, and since then the new list that was released, I believe, on Friday, really did define plants as an essential component to people's lives. So there's a lot of positive around that. Of course, dealing with all the repercussions of it, learning our dependency of foreign workers, and trying to retool with this new economy. I think it's very fair to say that this is a very long-term thing, in the sense that although we may not go straight back to business as usual, or might get to some capacity pretty soon, I think we all as business owners have to recognize that the days of e-commerce and delivery and curbside pickup will forever be in our websites and our checkout options and things like that. So we're doing the same. We're looking forward to it. It's nice to see these people in this industry come together, because I think more than ever we recognize how important we are together, and we also recognize how dynamic and how strong of an industry we are. We're like farmers at heart, and I think that's really showing its weight right now. So thank you all for coming and spending an hour with us.
Michael, thanks for the encouragement. Tanya, it's your turn.
Hey there, thanks very much. Welcome everybody. This is certainly a unique experience. And so I'm Tanya Olsen, and I'm one of the owners of Royal City Nursery in Guelph, Ontario. I'm third generation garden center owner. We are a retail garden center with a landscape design and installation division, as well as a fashion boutique. So for the winter, we are open 2.5 to 3 days a week. And we kept doing that January, February. We closed a little while ago. And at that point, once we closed, we flipped to doing curbside pickup, home delivery. We're running, screaming, as I think most of us are right now, towards an online website to get that up and functional. And from an owner's and a staff perspective, we've poured a ton of resources and a ton of time into our social media. So one of the big things we want to do is make sure that certainly our dollars are going to be down. There's no discussion about that. But we want to make sure that we sit top of mind for our clients, and that when this is, as they get further into this, and when it's over, or when we're getting to a point where we can return to semi-normal, that they remember who we are. So for us, that's been the key. So every phone call, every email, every Instagram message, everything gets a ton of resources poured into it. For us, it is very much a thing where I think for the first time in a long time, we as an industry are now top of mind for every single person in North America. How they want to grow, how they want to eat is now all starting to feed back to, I need my seeds, I need the proper soil, and better yet, I need the education on how to do it, so that I don't just plant a seed, but when I do, when you get to the harvest, you're getting a successful harvest. So that's been our point of view throughout this, and how can we really help our client maintain that, and maintain a sense of normal and a sense of peace at their house. And anything we can do to do that from a communication perspective, through social media, through website, through phone, we're trying, and we'll do as much as we can.
Thanks, Tanya. So have you decided to stay closed except for your curbside and your online? Is that what you've decided to do?
We're closed to foot traffic until April 13th for right now, and it's something we'll reassess once we get a little bit closer. For us, we really want to make sure that our curbside process, our online order process, our phone process is down pat, and we get it before we add in just another layer of things that could potentially go wrong. We're also working out all of the protocols right now for potentially having people through the store as well. So we're figuring out what the cleaning needs to be, the regimen, and how do we deal with limiting numbers for sure.
So you're hopeful that we'll be able to open up after the emergency, the April 14th, I think is the date.
I think so, and
okay.
I think realistically, somebody said, I think Michael said it best. Ultimately, at heart, we're farmers.
Yeah.
Most of us are located on agricultural land, and most of us understand the value of putting a plug in the ground or putting a plug in a pot, and knowing that the day you plant it, you're planting a whole bunch of hope.
Yeah. Wow.
So even when we look at houseplants, the idea of picking up a houseplant and being able to nurture that and talking to the plant parents, that goes a long way. Our industry we are always forward looking, right? We never dwell on what we're doing today. We deal with, there's going to be a harvest, it's going to get bigger, it's going to mature.
Tanya, I love how you put that. Planting hope. That's what we need. Art, are you planning to open on the 15th or 14th? Sorry if I missed the date there. Yeah.
Retail plans are in place for curbside pickup on this upcoming Wednesday, April the 8th. So, our garden centers are ready to launch. We've done all of our prep work leading up to that, and if that's the day that it is, we're going to do it then. If it's a few days later, whenever we decide to push the button, we're ready to go. And as Tanya was mentioning, a lot of the work has been gone into setting up the processes, the different steps, how an email order or a telephone order, an online order gets into the hands of the pickers in the stores, and how you keep the communication line open with our customers as it goes through, so that when they show up at the garden center, the curbside pickup is a seamless execution. So one of the biggest challenges with curbside pickup is that how well we will be able to scale it to the volume. If you visualize, a curbside pickup system as being comparable to one cash counter working efficiently, once we hit later in April, or even normally right now, you've got 3 to 8 different cash stations running at the same time, and they're all processing. And it's how can we scale up to the volume that we need to be at, to be as close as we can to last year's business or normal business.
So how does curbside pickup work? Like, exactly how do you do that?
Well, for us, for the order option, it's going to be online order, telephone ordering, text ordering, email ordering, and at the time of order and payment, which would happen, either at those points, if it's a live operator that handles it, or the computer system, the payment is handled. Then the order is either directed to delivery or directed to curbside pickup. We're aiming to have curbside pickup turnaround maintained at or under 24 hours. So setting up a pickup time and reaching back to the customer saying your order is going to be ready at this time. When you come in, stay in your car, give us a call at the store number when you arrive. There's designated parking spots for curbside pickup. Identify what type of vehicle you have your trunk open, and we will bring your order out to your car. Try to keep it as simple as possible, but keeping safety in mind and covering all of the bases.
Thanks.
And if I can add in there, sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
I was just saying that just to add to, I think everyone on this call is going to have a kind of a unique process to how they handle curb pickups and deliveries and things like that. I think one of the things that I can't stress enough about just even being another, you know, a human being in the grocery store or wherever we may be going, I find communicating with people is really very important right now. Selling and setting your expectations all the way through is really something that I think is very important for people to understand. You know, social distancing is kind of like a very, you know, trendy word right now and all these things, but every business will deal with that differently. Does that mean you line up outside of the store? When you're in the store, how many people can be around? Do you have a racetrack in your store? That means you only have one direction everyone can go. Just setting the social norms for your unique store, I find is something that we've really kind of put an eye to. And I think that puts everyone at ease as well when they come in, so that they know what to expect, and just little things like you know, how, just like Art was saying, you know, like coming up and pulling up and putting your trunk up and things like that. But communicating all those little steps is very key for people, and I can't stress enough how that is going to change in the next weeks to come.
Thanks, Michael. Warren, are you planning to open?
Yeah, we are. We're working to create simplicity in our operations. So I think Michael put me on to a great little Facebook group called IGC Talk, and I've been watching and monitoring what's being said there. And here's what we're hearing. We're hearing that people are spending 20 minutes on the phone taking a $20 order. We're hearing that it takes a lot of time to go and pick these orders. So, you know, and I think it's because a lot of times, well, this whole business has too much complexity in it. And so we're looking at being very, very focused in our top 100 SKUs in terms of making sure they're online, making sure that we direct people to place their orders online rather than through the phone or through email, because you're going to be spinning your wheels too much. And the idea of how do you organize the pickup is going to be very important. I heard just yesterday that Loblaws or Zehrs near my town here, it's a 3-week time frame for pickup. So even, you know, they're just overwhelmed by it. And Art's very right when he says, how do we convert 8 caches into curbside? It's impossible. You know, it is absolutely impossible. So I think that when you're going to enter into this market and you're going to do it in our busiest period, you better have a very focused plan on how you're going to do it. Otherwise, you're just exchanging dollars for dollars. And as I said to you at the top, you want to come out at least not in a bigger hole at the end of this year.
Thanks, Warren. Do you want to add anything, Terry, Robert? Rob?
I was at a large box store in the last couple of days, and I watched their curbside pickup process. Well, I was at 2. And one I was really impressed with, although the girl at the entrance said, we've got 1,700 backed up orders. And I can't imagine how many days that translated to. But they were doing it very well. They, you know, they had a drive-through process. People weren't allowed out of their cars. They had order numbers that were signed. They were texted to while they went into the parking lot, etc. So it appeared to go very smooth. The other one, another box store chain that you recognize, someone had phoned in about 8 or 10 bags of aggregate stone. A young girl came into the parking lot with a small wagon overloaded with 8 or 10 bags of stone. She was having a hard time pushing it, so one of her fellow work people came up right beside her and they pushed it together. And I thought, well, okay, there's step 1 in not very good social distancing. And they got into the parking lot, and it took them a long time to find the person that, because they didn't have proper identification of the vehicle or whoever it was that they were trying to meet. Once they got into the parking lot, the customer came out of their car, helped them load the product in the back of the car. We see what's all going wrong, right? So not done well, and that's at one of our major box store competitors. And then I thought, again, it's all about those that proceed safely and do a fantastic job at it deserve to have the business. You know, and I think that's where we're at as an industry. It's about proceeding safely. And I know that Connon Nurseries won't get it all right. I'll tell you that right now, but that is the approach, you know, because whether it's box store, whether it's, you know, whether it's trying to sneak past somebody at the grocery store 3 feet away from you, we're all having trouble with it, but I believe that this industry can do it correctly. You know, we are well aware of the volumes. We're good at managing large traffic flow in the spring season. And we have these huge swells for 4 hours in the middle of a busy Saturday or on a weekend that we have become good at dealing with. I believe that as an industry, we can be strong and good at this.
Yeah, just to add to that, first of all, does everyone else hate talking about this stuff at this time of year? This is a hard enough time of year just getting ready and, you know, to do all the volume that we do in the springtime. But I guess it is the new norm, and I'll just tag on to what Rob said. I mean, most of our garden centers or sales yards are outdoor. They're pretty spacious, you know, if you compare it to a box store or a grocery store. And, you know, Tony, I really like the work that you did and the letter that you sent to the Premier last week. And that is, you know, to prove how essential we really are, whether it's, you know, what it does for us mentally, physically, environmentally. You know, I'm personally really hoping that, you know, if our industry can prove that we can do this right, that we become an essential, one of the essential businesses. I mean, like I said earlier, they've approved the food places to be able to sell the plants. Well, that's not going to feel very good in a few weeks when we see that. So I'm really hoping that the industry can go towards, you know, really proving ourselves worthy of being open like the grocery stores.
Yeah, you know, something that kind of dawned on me, and it's really, you know, from a logic perspective, it's starting to make sense to me. You know, and I've said this before in another webinar, I mean, we spent our lifetimes proving how essential we are. There's no question that our industry is essential. Can you imagine a world without gardens and landscapes? You know, there's no question. But this isn't about being essential. It's really about trying to stop a life and death situation, and that's what it's about, and doing our part. And so that's where it gets all confusing. So I think the you know, the biggest question we need to ask is, can we operate safely? With the new essential workplaces list, it clearly does say growers can operate, and under 26, the value chain end of things, it seems to be saying that garden centers can operate. But you know, whether or not we can operate, there's a huge issue of fear. There's a huge issue of public reputation. And you know, this thing can all go really sideways if people don't do it right. You know, even if you get the permission based on the essential workplace, aren't you afraid? Just the question is, so sorry for the, you know, the editorial, but my question is, are you afraid of the public backlash? Are you getting any right now? And what are you going to do about it?
Tony,
So
if I may.
Yeah.
Sorry. In terms of, if I can start with the backlash first. So far, we haven't seen any. Now, we may just be lucky. We may also have a set of blinders on that's that we're just not looking at appropriately. But the one overwhelming thing we do hear, we see, and we get told from our client is, oh my gosh, we have, this is our happy. I loaded a bunch of pansies into a client's car yesterday, and she was almost in tears as I did it. And she looked at me, she said, this is the first happy thing I've done for myself, just me, all by myself. No kids, no news, no politics, in over a week. That that was pretty cool. And I think if I can kind of work backwards a little bit to address some of the other things that the gentlemen were saying, when we look at the small order, I know it's frustrating, and you spend 20 minutes pulling a $20 order. The difficulty and the hard thing to focus on, and the thing we need to focus on, is those small orders build trust, right? So if we can handle a $20 order right, if we can handle a $30 order right, now we've got the trust of the client, and it gets a little bit easier to engage. We've also taught them how to engage. So a lot of what I think we're trying to do is really teach the client how they need to engage with us right now. So we spend a lot of time looking at the client saying, you know what, you're learning, we're learning together, which is the awesome part. And when we do get through all of this, there is, our industry will be forever changed. Our communities, our businesses, our individuals, we are going to be forever changed. But at the same time, we are together, right? And that's the big thing. Every single person is going through this absolutely together. And that's the part we need to focus on. As long as we're safe, as long as we're healthy, and as long as we're together, we'll figure out a way through it. Humans always do. Farmers are actually phenomenal at it. So we got to remember that part. So are growers.
Yeah, and just to kind of, sorry to continue on there, I just, we're talking about, earlier I was talking about communication and kind of all of that, like the backlash. We really have to kind of not defend our positions of why we're essential, but we really have to justify in the public's mind why we are able to be open, but also again just hinging on that communication is really explaining to customers why our procedures are so important, so they can understand the health and safety practices that we have in place. I think seeing from the thread here that a couple of the common questions like Darren about safety in the garden center and introducing new staff to the mix, I think are all very valid concerns, and I think that's where we have to really as a group focus on how we can move forward. Darren, just to answer your question that you had in the thread there, yes, Landscape Ontario and CNLA are currently working on kind of like a protocols or best practices for the garden centers. We are trying to kind of create like a press release of it, hopefully this week. For a couple things, just good practices for garden centers, but also in Ontario, and I'm recognizing now that we have probably members all over the country participating on this town hall, but for Ontario, it's very important to have this because we have like an essentials list or a request for essentials list, and I think the box that we can type stuff in is only about 200 characters long, so in a very short amount of time, we have to explain why we're doing some good health and safety practices. So I think bringing to a common document is very important. So just to kind of answer a couple of these questions, yes, I think Tony or CNLA will be issuing health and safety practices, and I think it's very key that we can update this too. So anything that this community can bring forward to it is very key. For example, I saw a draft of it a couple of days ago, and it didn't talk about returns, which is in my mind, a very vulnerable issue because we're dealing with something that's coming back from the general public. How we deal with like deliveries and stuff like that. So any input anyone has, please encourage to share it after the fact as well. So that's my 2 cents.
Art, how do you handle the public fear piece? And actually, not just the public fear. What about your employees? I mean, I think that needs to be talked about as well.
Yeah, well, thanks, Tony. On the employee front, our leadership group in our garden centers has been really transparent and kept open lines of communications with the employees on a regular basis. I hold video conference calls with the managers and the purchasing team 3 times a week to make sure that the line of communication is there. And an important part of that is that I'm listening and that we're listening to what they're saying, the people that are working in the trenches. It's if they're not comfortable with a part of our plan going forward, I need to hear about it because, employee safety is that I think that's the foundation for everything that we want to do going forward. So there are so many good practices that either IGCs or supermarkets or hardware stores are putting in place to ensure that there's social distancing and, you know, screens at the caches and stuff. We're not there yet. We're still at curbside pickup, but there's so much good stuff out there that we can all, you know, roll into our own operations. You know, the other part, the part that comes up in conversations frequently and is really difficult to manage is the, you know, the 2 meter rule of spacing. And how do you handle that in deliveries? How do you handle that in, you know, large, heavy plant material or fountains and statues that you want to sell? You know, Warren had mentioned about focusing on your top 100 or your most core products, and you know, we're revisiting what we're putting out in face to the public right now to make sure that it is the product lines that are appropriate, but also that can be managed and, you know, distributed safely with the work teams that we have. So, you know, it's constantly moving. From a social media point of view, we've had nothing but positive comments and support about our stand going forward. Our social media messaging, for the most part, certainly while we were closed, was about what homeowners and home gardeners can be doing and what they should be doing in their front yards and backyards right now, or their indoor gardens. Really just, you know, timely messaging going forward and keeping that communication line clear. So, but, yeah.
So while you mention it, how are you handling the one-person delivery piece? Like, how are you doing that? Like, what happens if something's too heavy? Like, have you thought through all that stuff?
Well, yeah, we have, and we will need to, you know, first of all, make a decision on what you're going to be selling. But if we need to have a second person come out, it's going to require a second vehicle following the first vehicle to that job site. And, you know, our position is that should not be an employee's personal vehicle unless, you know, unless their personal vehicle insurance states that, you know, they can use their vehicle as, you know, business, their job is part of it. Like my insurance would be fine because, you know, it states I travel to all the stores on a regular basis, but a regular employee working in a garden center, that probably wouldn't be the case. So having a second rental vehicle for shuttles, if you have to do that, making sure that every vehicle is equipped with all of the equipment that can be used to minimize or eliminate close handling. So traditionally, you know, in our stores anyways, you know, we may have 2 or 3 ball carts, but, you know, if all the trucks went out on the road and et cetera, you can not have enough equipment. Well, we've had to restock our equipment to make sure that every channel of distribution and operation has the equipment at the ready without sacrificing or hurting another part of the operation.
Thank you, Art. Warren, you have something to add?
Yeah, there's a few things on the delivery that I want people. There's opportunity here to actually help our other members here. Landscapers are sitting at home right now. Some of them have vehicles and delivery operations that they may be able to help you with. There's companies like Rental Run and even DoorDash and small little couriers that could also help as well. So I think we also have to look at who else can we partner with at this time to get us through that delivery stage. I think that's something that is important for people to look at because it's, as Art says, it's going to be difficult to try and do it all.
And on that, Tony, there was a question about landscape gardeners in that sector. I'm not as versed to that. What is the ruling for essential, non-essential for like the maintenance contractors side of things? Are they working? Are they able to help us?
No, Michael, you're asking difficult questions. We're going to deal with that tomorrow at a webinar. So the new essentials list is more restrictive. If you have to look at number 20, and it's up to the individual companies to interpret number 20. But I want to stay on topic here for garden centers, and we'll deal with the maintenance tomorrow. So those people that are on here that want to know about maintenance, we'll talk tomorrow. We'll have another hour to spend there.
100%. I saw a couple threads about it, but it's also because we service the garden centers, it's just kind of like knowing what we can anticipate. But I agree, this is a garden center forum, and looking forward to tomorrow's chat on that.
And all these questions are so difficult. And anyway, so Rob and Terry, do you want to add to the question about public perception and keeping public safe and keeping your employees safe, and also dealing with delivery options?
Yeah, definitely. So we, as Rob mentioned earlier, so we were closed down for 2 weeks because we wanted to really nail down processes for being open and work on the curbside pickup as well. But we were really at that time working on processes to get open. And so Friday and Saturday we were open, and I welcome any one of the members too to stop by to see what we do. We'd love to share with what we did. We worked pretty hard at setting up large signs at the entrance that says "Stop if you have any of these symptoms. We don't want you in our place." When you enter into the doors, there is a greeter, and the greeter is full-time washing down carts, so that when the customers come in, or staff that are using them internally, but they know they're grabbing something that's very clean. So it's a little bit of an extra labor cost there, but we really wanted that perception that, hey, we're looking after you and your safety. Then when you proceed in towards the sales yard, there's washing stations for your hands, disinfectant wipes that customers can use, and garbage cans beside it. We have large signs that talk about the 2-meter distancing, and we have visuals on the floor every 2 meters that just cognitively remind people about 6 foot spacing. Then when you come to the cash, there are plexiglass in front of the cashiers that they're safe, and they've also worked probably about a week on just practicing with each other on how would you do that? How do you do that with just a few customers per day, but really how are we going to be doing it in May when it really counts? And to your point, Tony, I completely agree. What is this all about? This is about stopping the spread. And we keep going back to that. We have to keep putting that in front of us. It is about the safety. It is about how can we as a world do this properly. And we feel pretty strong about the fact that we all need to do this well. We all need to proceed safely, opposed to pushing the crowds all into a few places. That to me makes no sense. And so if it really is about stopping the spread, then we all need to do our part. And the picking who's essential and who's not, I guess that's a good way to start. But honestly, if this is for the long term, we all have to learn how to do this really, really well and proceed safely for the long term. To the public shaming, customers that were coming in and they were seeing what we were doing, and there's still lots for us to learn, but what we were doing so far, people were impressed and they were happy. It was a sunny day on Saturday. I mean, look what our industry does, right? It's just beautiful product, beautiful hobby that people are doing, and no public shaming yet, although we're expecting it.
You are expecting it, okay. So I'm just going through here and just picking out some questions. So here, Olive is saying so many of our sales, or so much of our sales, is based on impulse sales. How do we try to compensate for this?
Tony.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, and what we're finding is a lot of those impulse sales are actually coming over the phone. So rather than trying to deal with the person who's emailed us and said, send me a list of your rabbit-resistant perennials, we try very, very hard to get them to call in. So at least we can have that one-on-one with them. And then it's also a little bit about if we're selling seeds, then we know, who better than us to know that you need fertilizer, you need soil, and what else do you need to actually make the seed successful. So a lot of it has been retraining ourselves. We've actually redone a bunch of the signage in the store, so it's not just about a price anymore. Our signage has the title of the product, and it has a couple of sentences in point form about what you can use that product for. So then that way, that's what, if it's not somebody who's familiar with the product, as they're walking through the store with somebody on the phone, they've got that answer right there. And we also are rejigging our floor right now, so we put the accessory products together. So if you've got a seeding soil, it doesn't sit outside, it sits, we've got a bunch of bags right beside the seed racks. So again, anything we can do to keep that top of mind for us will translate back to top of mind for the consumer. And most of the consumers we've actually talked to really appreciate it, because they want to know and they want to be successful, and they're coming to us to be successful. So again, anything we can do, and we go back to what Michael said about that idea of communication. Communicate, 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 communicate. And when you're tired and you don't want to do it anymore, pull up your shorts, slap a smile on, and off you go. Do as much live as you can on social media. Set up something where you're doing a live taping, same time every day. And you use Facebook, use Instagram, use it shamelessly, because they want the info and they want you. They want the owner. They want to see us. So anything we can do, again, to communicate, figure out if now's the time for dormant oil, then you need to be doing a live and social media posting on this is dormant oil, but it's not come and get it. It's this is how you use it. And P.S. we have it, so give us a call. So try to message a little bit differently.
Any other comments from the panelists on impulse sales?
I kind of wrote in the bit there, but I think all we have to understand is that retail in general has changed a lot, and so it's just a matter of delivering the same impulse, just how they see it or how they get it is no different. Whoever's bought an article of clothing at 2 a.m. because they couldn't sleep and just did it. That's just how it's going to happen now. There's a lot of different things that can change about our businesses, but I think what we also have to recognize is that the consumer has changed with us. We're all in this together. We hear this a lot, but really we have to recognize that that is true, because the consumer has to accept that, we've changed our systems and protocols, but they might have to also adapt to be able to, buy things that they might not be able to pick everyone, or just casually shop, or maybe it's whatever the delivery mechanism of there. I put in a link from a garden center in Germany that has a corral of carts in the parking lot. It's a drive-through Labrath of picking things out. Everyone's in this. Everyone's making changes. It's just exciting to see how we can adapt to it. And like I said earlier, and Tanya, you said the same thing. At heart, we're farmers. We deal with agriculture products, so that kind of perseverance is going to really pay off, I think, for our industry.
Michael, I love your optimism. Anybody else want in?
Yeah, Tony?
Yeah.
Your telephone operators, the people that each one of us assigned to answer the telephones for the incoming calls, you need to make sure that you've got the right people on the phones, and recognize that they are, although we don't want to be using the telephones to provide horticultural information, we should be steering all of those things to our websites. But the people that are on the phones are not order takers, they're salespeople. So they need to be, this is your primary items that you're talking about, but we need to build on each sale to make sure that we're selling solutions, not products. And you can't be assuming that the people have what they've got, but it's a sales opportunity, or it's a sales challenge, not an order taking challenge.
Anybody else want to add in? So I have a question that's been asked a couple of times, and also I think Darren is asking it, especially for the grower garden centers. They've had a lot of canceled orders. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with your canceled orders? Is there any contractual issues there? I mean, so just a general question. Maybe we'll start with Terry and Rob.
Well, I want to make sure I'm clear on the question.
Yeah. So the question is, how do you handle canceled orders? So you've made a contract. A lot of times the growers are growing specifically for various landscape operations in municipalities, and then the order gets canceled. How do you deal with it?
So I made some deliberate phone calls to even some of our suppliers through the course of the last 2 weeks. And our relationships, I believe, are strong enough that we can be flat out honest with where we're at. Not that that's any surprise to any of the growers that we're speaking with, but our approach has been, we're committed to putting a first set of inventory into our properties, whether that be on the grower side or whether that be on the hard goods side, but we're committed to putting a first set of inventory in. And the staff have been working hard at that, so that if by the end of April that we are, seeing larger crowds and we're past the curve, that at that point, our shelves are ready. And we have been flat out honest in saying that, please understand two things, and that is, we don't know when we're into cash flow, so you may have to work with us on the payment of those items. And secondly, please understand that second half of inventory may or may not be released from your locations.
Right.
And I have to be honest, the majority of growers at this point have been overwhelmingly okay with that. I guess maybe that's because of the fact that we're all realistic about the fact that we can't bring in inventory that isn't going to move, and they're in it with us. So I think that's, in general, I think that's worked well for us. Is just to be honest with where we're at.
Okay. Tanya, you want to add something?
There we go. So we're in the same kind of boat. And it's something where a couple weeks ago, I talked to all of our major growers and major suppliers and said, look, guys, we're willing to take a first wave. We'll see how it goes. And this is where we're going. We're heading online. We're doing this and this and this. So anything that you can do as a vendor to help us with that and to back us with that will make our successive orders easier. So if you've got photographs, if you've got Excel sheets with descriptions, if you've got anything, send them to us and we'll make sure we use them. So then I've found out of that, I've got several partnerships that are actually getting quite a bit stronger because they're able to help us a little bit better too.
Okay. Anyone else want to tackle that question? It's kind of, Art, it's circular for you, isn't it? Like, it works both ways on your end as a grower. With this canceled order issue, how do you handle it?
Well, much like the previous two have mentioned, our contractual commitments with our suppliers, particularly annual growers, we were in touch with them as early as we could, in the middle of March, recognizing that a lot of stuff was already in motion, especially stuff that goes around Easter products. But we gave as much lead time as we could, and like Rob said, overall, we've committed to taking our initial orders for almost all of our products. Although in some cases we've looked at some of the big bulky heavy items and said, what, we're going to pass on that item. But initial orders get stocked up, and reorders after that, they're gonna really come down to our replenishment needs. So talking with the suppliers, getting extended terms, working together on the solutions. Everybody in our sector and all sectors is really heavily involved. So we're all affected by it.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Michael?
I just think that, like you hear people canceling orders and stuff like that. I think you have to understand that, we're like, brothers and sisters in arms here. I would hate to see, stuff getting chucked out. Like, you see the tulip farms throwing out flowers in Amsterdam right now. And it's so sad to see. And I understand everyone's going to have a little bit of, consequences to this, but if you have the capacity to help out your suppliers, you'll be remembered for that as well. And I think, they have families to feed and employees who rely on them for paychecks. Little things like if you can, pay your bills earlier, if you can, or if you need extended terms to make the deal happen. I think everybody's willing to put anything on the table. Just put yourselves in their shoes.
Yeah. So there's a question here. Jeff's asking it. What will happen if enforcement comes? So I mean, most of you are going to open up on the 14th or 15th. But what will happen if the bylaw or enforcement officer comes? What's your strategy for dealing with that? You thought about it, Warren?
It was a question I posed last week. It is a real threat because the Ontario government under the Emergency Act has given the bylaws officers the opportunity to immediately place fines on your business. And I think if you do grow, you have some wiggle room in getting out. But if you don't grow, and if you're a true retailer, buy and sell, and you would have to probably make sure you define, if you are a grower, that you just grow a bit, but 90% of your sales is still buy and sell. You could be put into a very difficult position. The governments are taking this very seriously, and in return, they're actually trying to help out small businesses and everything like that, and the people into it. So I don't know what I would do if the bylaw officer showed up, because I don't know if you can play ignorance now. Because we're trying to justify, and I hear all the arguments of, we're good for people's health and the environment and everything like that. But I think what we're trying to figure out in life is, are we taking a societal pause and an economic pause? And right now, I don't believe we've taken an economic pause. At least the government hasn't acted in a way that we've taken an entire economic pause. So from a bylaw officer, I think it's a huge risk. Huge risk. And I'll take this a little step further. And it's interesting where this question came from. But the other day, I saw Bears and Bolton setting up their seasonal garden center, parking lot, everything like you would normally see. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This is not in their business an essential part of their business per se. And so I was like, people are going to be walking in there and shopping like they would normally do. So, I think we're in a situation right now where the rules aren't clear, and we do need some clarity. And I think at time, we're going to get more and more clarity in life. And I'm hoping that this April 15th, this May 1st is the time where we're going to get a lot more clarity on things.
Art?
Yeah, we actually had a visit at one of our locations, so I can give you a real response. We had a bylaw enforcement officer come in and basically say, what are you guys doing? Your business is shut down. And we were able to demonstrate that, hey, listen, we are ready and up and running for curbside pickup. We've got people here today taking care of perishable plant material. We actually had somebody watering products that had arrived that day when we were there. And basically, we walked through the property with the bylaw officer. We were able to demonstrate that the employees that we had on the site at the time were all working with social distancing, and we had our housekeeping standards in place. We were able to demonstrate all of the proactive things that we were doing, and really, he left with a positive impression. Kind of a cautionary saying, you better make sure that you're not exceeding a certain head count of people in your operation right now. But the things that were going on made sense, even though this is somebody that was, quite ignorant of the requirements of plant maintenance and gardening. So,
Tanya, you want to answer that question?
We haven't seen a bylaw yet. We're certainly expecting one, and we've heard of a number of other garden centers who've had visits, and I think our intention is to follow exactly what Art was saying, right? So all of our staff we make sure there's no more than 5 of us in the building at any one point in time. There's no more than 1 person in any office at one time. Lunchroom, they're actually not using. We use it as a facility to wash hands and to clean. So they're eating outside, and the rest of any of our staff who are outdoors right now, they're miles apart, and we're still able to get the nursery yard set up from opposite ends of the yard. Most of the time, somebody's got either a hose in their hand, or they were doing some kind of pruning or some kind of cleaning up, because that's what we would normally be doing at this time of year anyway.
Michael?
Sorry, was that?
What are you going to do if the bylaw officer comes? What's your
Me?
strategy? Yeah.
I mean, going back to my previous kind of comments about setting expectations and stuff like that, I think every business that is operating right now should have clearly defined standard, not only for the general public, but just for their staff as well. Businesses that are in Ontario are not unfamiliar with, like, say, Ontario Accessibility Act, where you have to publish your standards online. I think any business that's remiss from having these standards publicly noted to everyone is missing a key component of how we're trying to operate but safely intake our customers. Like I said earlier as well, defending our position of why we believe we're open is an important thing. So if you can demonstrate which sections of the law you believe you're operating under, and all the parameters that you have in place, written out to the public, posted on your front door, anything like that is going to justify the process for you. And I think in the end, best practices will prevail. The Ontario government, when they released this first round of essential, non-essential, I believe it was the finance minister of Ontario was saying that, we are working with businesses to make sure we support them through this. So I don't think bylaw officers are here to cause a lot of problem for us. I think you just have to be able to understand that they are trying to protect the public safety as well, and you need to facilitate that as a business owner as well. So don't have your head down on the blue line kind of saying where, they show up and you're scrambling for standards. Point to them, show them, because your staff should be able to as well, and the general public should be able to have them at their fingertips. And I think we all move forward.
So we'll give the last word to Terry and Rob in terms of that question.
Yeah, I would say we should welcome the approach of bylaw officers coming through and encourage it. Because I would be in the camp that would say, if we as an industry can support the fact that we're essential, and in the actions that we do by our protocol and safety, that bylaw officers would come in, or anyone, and say, these people are really managing this well. I'd rather be in that position and have more stores open, quite frankly, is where I'm at, than the opposite. So I would say welcome them in, and get that. If there's anything that's offside, then let's get more clarity and let's make sure we get better. If there's things that are amiss.
Thanks, Rob.
Can I add something, Tony?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. So, it's interesting when a bylaw officer typically shows up, that's based on someone lodging a complaint, typically. So, and I would agree with what Terry and Rob are saying is welcome them in, because the next time someone phones into the municipality will at least have that argument in place. Because most bylaw officers work on exception, not on proactive enforcement, if you will.
Thank you. So we're at the end of this town hall. It's an hour and 7 minutes that we've been at this. I just want to thank all the presenters for sharing. I want to thank all of the attendees. I mean, I'm watching the chat lines and you're answering your own each other's questions, which is great. And one thing that I'm finding very inspiring is, although many of you are facing devastating situations, that you do take the time to help others. I'm so thankful to be in the company of so many awesome people. Keep well. Okay. There's another webinar tomorrow for the landscape community. See you soon.
Thank you.